Ohio State coach Ryan Day doesn't really want to give up play calling. He likes play calling. It's been a big part of his career, and getting to this point and being the head coach at Ohio State has included that. And yet, as we talked to him just now in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for the first time since the Cotton Bowl, he admitted that it was something he had to do, and he went out and found the right guy he thought to turn that over to in Bill O'Brien. Except, as we stand here Wednesday morning, Bill O'Brien is, by widely reported, the leading candidate to become Boston College's next head coach. And if that happens, Ryan Day has to pivot to someone else. So Nathan Baird from cleveland.com along with Stephen Means. Stephen, how big of a deal do you think it is? How much does it hurt Ohio State after what's been a lot of momentum building for the last 6 weeks if Ryan Day doesn't get to keep Bill O'Brien as his offensive coordinator, his first true offensive coordinator at Ohio State?
Potentially significantly hurts Ohio State because he kept bringing in the caveat of, like, we're not just going to go find another guy, right? It's got to be the guy who fits this criteria that I was looking for to take over the role. And Bill O'Brien fit that criteria to take over the role. So if he leaves, he had a list. He said he talked to other people about the job, and I'm sure he'll probably go back around to that list. But there was a very thorough process in coming to this decision. First of all, that he needed to do this. Another thorough process of finding the guy who he could do this with. And so don't just expect him, if Bill O'Brien does indeed take the Boston College job, to just 24 hours later, 48 hours later, oh, this person is now the new offensive coordinator. So it doesn't work that well. Plus, Bill O'Brien has already been entrenched in what they're doing. He's already been in meetings and, talking lingo and talking ball with guys and implementing his own stuff into this offense, along with working within Ryan Day's fraction of things. And so it's significant. Especially, we're in February now, so this would be a very big deal if Ryan Day came to probably one of the bigger decisions he's made as Ohio State's head coach. And as soon as he makes that decision walks out the door, because one of the other big decisions he made in his career decided to walk out of his door.
Yeah, there's a lot about this that isn't good, and it's because we talk all the time in the recruiting sphere about how the difference between a plan A and a plan B and a plan whatever comes after that. And when you have too many positions where you don't have plan A, and it's obvious that your plan A didn't work out and you're relying on other plans, quite often those line up with the weaknesses you're trying to overcome as a team. And I don't think Bill O'Brien leaving is something irreparable for Ohio State. But Ryan Day made it pretty clear that he wanted someone with this kind of experience, this sort of coaching wisdom, for lack of a better term, this sort of clout, I think, within the sport. I think it was because he needed someone that he trusted completely to turn over these things that he knows is something he has to do now. He knows he has to take play calling and full oversight of the offense off of his plate and give it to someone else. But the number of people in the country, in that industry, who have that sort of resume, check all those boxes, and are available right now to be a college offensive coordinator is not an especially long list. The number of people who have Bill O'Brien's experience and success as an NFL and college football Power 5 head coach and are available now to be Ohio State's offensive coordinator is a short list. So this is not going to be his plan A. If Bill O'Brien leaves, it's publicly and obviously going to plan B. However, the thing that underlies all this is he does still have himself, not necessarily to keep those duties, but as part of the equation. And whoever he hires in, if it's the next tier below Bill O'Brien, if it's going and finding someone like he had with Kevin Wilson, but still turning over the play calling to him, I think that could still work in the same realm, the same capacity. So you're going to hear a lot of names that are people who are along the same lines as O'Brien, head coaching experience, whether it's Jason Candle at Toledo, whether it's Joe Moorhead at Akron. There's people like Brian Johnson, who just got fired as the Eagles offensive coordinator, who is out there and has a lot of college offensive coordinator experience, and that's somebody who came onto the market after O'Brien was hired at Ohio State. So yes, some candidates took other jobs, but other candidates have come on to the market since then. And I think you're right, Stephen, that the big decision that Ryan Day made was to finally say, okay, I'm stepping away. Like, I'm going to be the head coach. He's talking today about maybe being involved in special teams more, and he couldn't do that before because he was so involved in the offense. I think we saw some of the ramifications of that on the field the past 2 years. So the big decision was to get to that point to where he's going to do that. But the second big decision now is when you're obvious, what he considered like a home run candidate leaves after a month, who do you then pivot to? This is a big decision that's still hanging out there that might end up shaping, before this seemed like a big punctuation mark on the end of a really impressive run of 6 weeks, and now it's a little bit more of a question mark. What do you do in response? And I don't think you're trying to win the press conference, and I don't really think they did that with the Bill O'Brien hire in some ways. That wasn't the flashy young name that maybe people had been envisioning. It was more about other things that he wanted, institutional things that he wanted. Can he still go find that person this late in the process?
And I think it's probably why he hasn't hired that 10th guy yet, right? Because he's still trying to figure out how this, especially with the Bill O'Brien news now, there are things Ryan Day wants to do now that he doesn't have to sit in every meeting and lead every offensive meeting. You brought up the special teams point. Maybe he sits in defensive meetings as well. So that might shape how he goes about hiring that 10th person. And if it's going to be Bill O'Brien, maybe you just promote James Laurinaitis in that role, but they don't have to do that necessarily. But if it's not going to be Bill O'Brien and you have to go find another guy, it might shift a little bit about what Ryan Day wants his responsibilities to be Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And so that might shape why they haven't hired that 10th guy yet. And he doesn't have to necessarily rush to do so.
Yeah, it's more like how much does he still have to be involved in the offense, which means he can't be involved as much as special teams, or changes who they hire because that person has to be a bigger part of special teams. There's a lot of things that are still at play, and we'll be following it, so we'll get the text 614-350-3315. As soon as we finally hear some finality on what Ohio State's doing with these positions and what's happening with Bill O'Brien, that's where we come to it first from cleveland.com.